I am Dr. Penelope Pacheco Lopez, a lecturer in economics at the School of Economics at the University of Kent. And previously, I have worked for at least 4 different UN organizations, including UNCTAD in Geneva, UNDP office in Mexico, UNIDO with its headquarters in Vienna. Today, I have a set of videos on trade liberalization, which will provide you with an overview of the process of trade liberalization and its consequences. These are partly based on my co-author book with Professor Tony Thirlwell, already published a few years ago. So I will take you through 6 subtopics. First, we will start with trade liberalization and its advocates. Then, I will refer to the criticisms of trade liberalization. Thirdly, we will talk about the trade performance, trade liberalization, and economic growth. Then, we will refer to trade liberalization, poverty, and inequality. Fifthly, I will talk about the role of international organizations. And finally, I will try to answer the question, can trade support development? In this video, I will refer you to trade liberalization and its origins and its advocates. So to do this, I will have to refer you to 3 great economists. I will talk about Adam Smith, I will refer you to David Ricardo, and John Stuart Mill. But before that, please let me tell you that trade has become more liberalized in the last 40 to 50 years. Besides, world trade only was 10%, and now it accounts to 40% of GDP. So there has been a huge increase. Now, let's go back in time and first refer to Adam Smith. Adam Smith, in his book, An Inquiry into the Nature and Causes of the Wealth of Nations, published in 1776, stressed the role of trade as a means of widening the market, thereby allowing for specialization and the division of labor. As well as economies of scale from specialization, there is a prospect, and I underline prospect, that more trade will enhance growth by inducing the so-called dynamic economies of scale. These are associated with capital accumulation, technical progress, and the spread of knowledge. Now, let's talk about David Ricardo. In his 1817 book on the principles of political economy and taxation, he stressed the basis of trade are the differences in the productivity of labor between countries and in the production of different goods. This leads to the idea of comparative advantage. What does comparative advantage mean? This means that it will pay a country to specialize in those commodities in which relative labor productivity is the highest, or for which the opportunity cost of production is lowest. To illustrate the gains from trade, Ricardo used the example of England and Portugal. England specializing in the production of cloth and Portugal specializing in the production of wine. The assumption was that England had a comparative advantage in the production of cloth and Portugal a comparative advantage in the production of wine. The comparative cost doctrine assumes full employment and balanced trade in the process of resource allocation. Bear in mind, these are very strong assumptions. The free trade doctrine assumes that all cloth workers in Portugal can find work in the wine-making industry, and all wine workers in England can find work in the cloth industry. However, this is not the case. Then, if this is not fulfilled, there are issues of unemployment. A clear example would be what has happened to farmers in Mexico with the NAFTA agreement, an agreement between the US, Canada, and Mexico. Mexican farmers cannot compete with their trading partners, so they have lost. Overall, the loss of jobs in Mexico have represented that Mexican farmers have lost against their competitors, their trading competitors. In 1848, John Stuart Mill published his Principles of Political Economy. He reiterated some of the points already made by Adam Smith. Trade widens the market for goods, thereby permitting the division of labor. But additionally, Mill also stressed the role of trade as a conduit for the international dissemination of ideas and technology. Importantly, Mill recognized that the growth effects of trade depend on what a country specializes in, whether these are natural activities, natural resource activities, or manufacturing industries. And you can think of two examples. It makes a difference for a country to specialize producing wheat versus a country specializing producing electronics, for instance. Let's refer to the free trade advocates in the modern era. The tide of opinion in favor of free markets had its intellectual roots in the ideas of economists such as Friedrich von Hayek and Milton Friedman. For them, the role of state in economic affairs came under increased scrutiny by both economic theoreticians and practitioners alike. Anti-statism became the fashion, and in the international arena, it led to the development of the so-called Washington Consensus, something that you will hear me talking about later on. Finally, let's refer to the measurement of trade liberalization. There are many different measures and concepts of trade liberalization and trade openness. Trade liberalization is not the same as trade openness, and these two terms are usually confused. Trade openness is measured as a share of exports or by the share of imports in GDP or by the share of total trade in GDP. But it doesn't say why some countries trade more than others. A high trade share does not imply trade liberalization. The most common measure of trade liberalization focuses on what's happening to tariffs and non-tariff barriers to trade, whether there is bias against exports in favor of import substitution, and in general, it refers to the microeconomic and macroeconomic environment of a country. If we would follow Anne Kruger and Jajat Bhagwati, trade liberalization can be defined as any policy that reduces the degree of anti-export bias.